This is my girlfriend. She has no backpack. Let's fix that. Since I am a leather worker, I think I have the skills for it. Okay, let me take you through the plans. Alright, so let's get started with the plans. As with every project I do, I always make a small sketch before I do anything, just to organize my thoughts and get in the right mindset for creation. I also sketch out the sewing pattern to see how many pieces I will need. Basically, that's it. Now I can move on to cutting out the sewing patterns. I'm going to be using a baking sheet for this. And it may look stupid, but trust me, it is one of the best and cheapest pieces of material available. Now, the only constraint of this backpack in terms of size is the fit of this yellow clipboard. So this has to fit inside. And that's it. So I'm going to be basing the whole dimensions of the project around this clipboard. I came up with two designs for the top of the backpack because I don't want it to be too big, but I also don't want it to be too small and too blocky. So this is the two curves that I've come up with. I went with a bit more blocky and a bit more modern style. I hope it's gonna look good. Now all that's left is to round off the corners and get started on all the other pieces. This piece is the front and the back. This is the pocket. This is the bottom. These are the sides. This is the top and the top zipper side. There are a bunch of other more pieces, but I wanted to show you these because these are the most important. Now for the material. I've bought this huge piece of leather that barely fits in my room, and I'll make sure to try to get it into one shot. And you can see me drawing on all my sewing pattern pieces. I try to waste as little material as possible, so I'm going around the edges trying to find the best spot to cut out something and the best fit for the sewing pattern piece. First, I've made some rough cuts, and then I'm going to move on to my table and try to fix everything with my tailor's scissors. I barely used like a fifth of the leather that I've bought, so this is a really economical project. But it's going to take a long time to sew everything together and to make it look professional. So I'm taking care and being precise, even though at this point I don't really have to be precise, since this is just the basic cutting of the shapes. And the final form will be achieved during sewing. So I've ended up with like 15 pieces of leather that are ready to be sewn together. But not yet, since I need to iron out every single fold, and I also want to strengthen the front and back pieces with some rigidity panels. So here you can see me ironing out every single piece and then ironing on something that adds a bit more rigidity to the whole backpack. And I think that will look way better than if I just left it like soft. After this, I am prepared to start the sewing process. I'm gonna start off with the front of the backpack, with the front pocket. Then move my way backwards toward the front panel and then the top zipper. Then I'm gonna attach some straps and hopefully it will look nice. Let me show you. When sewing zippers, you need to hide the edges of leather by folding them in on themselves. To achieve this, in the middle of the pocket, I cut a small slit and then two V's on the ends of the slit. Next, I glue everything up and make it neat and tidy. I check my fit, and yep, the zipper fits perfectly. Now on to the longer one, which is going to be on the top of the backpack. I measure out the middle carefully and then draw a long straight line. On this, I'm going to cut with a straight edge. Then I'm going to cut two V-slots on the ends and glue them up as I've shown you before. But since this is a longer zipper, I need to pay more attention and I need to be a bit more precise than on the previous one. By the way, these seams won't be seen on the inside since I will have a lining on the whole inside of the backpack. As I'm finishing this up, I'm thinking about the different color choices for the string that I'm going to use. I need to use leather sewing string, obviously, but what color and what would go best with this matte black backpack? I had this red, this navy blue and this matte white, but I didn't really like them, so I ended up choosing a different one and buying some string from the corner store. This is an off-white, like beige looking color, and I think it fits the backpack perfectly. This is pretty unnecessary, but I'm going to glue the zipper onto the folded down flaps of the front pocket, and I think that this will make it more easy to sew. Now that that's done, all the preparations are complete, and finally we can get started on the sewing. As you can see, leatherworking takes a lot of preparation, and finally we can attach the zipper to the front of the pocket and sew it in place. I'm using a simple straight stitch with 0.4 millimeters of stitch distance and a bit more pressure than with normal fabrics and a bit more tension also. I don't really like learning from tutorial videos, so everything is probably wrong, but I'm doing this based only on my past experiences, and this is about 5 years of cumulative work and knowledge that I've picked up. Okay, now let's check if the zipper works. Yes, success! Now again, pretty unnecessary, but I'm going to glue on these strips that will even out the tension on the sides of the zipper. I think that this will make a smoother transition between the zipper and the rest of the pocket piece. I'm going to be sewing the zipper and the top part together with the lining. You can see this is the red fabric that I chose for the whole lining of the inside of the backpack. And this is going to be the top piece of the lining, which I'm cutting out right now. I'm also cutting a slit in it and gluing it on to the long zipper so that it will stay in place as I sew it together. It is always more difficult to sew something this long together, especially when more layers are involved. And at this point I'm sewing through 4 layers of fabric, which takes a toll on my machine and also my precision. So I'm trying to keep calm, keep it steady and keep moving slowly forward. That's one side done. You can see that on the inside not much can be seen, and that's what we want. Now for the other side. This piece of leather is not going to be long enough for the whole entirety of the backpack, so I decided on adding 2 symmetrical side panels on both sides of the backpack. I've left about 1 centimeter of seam allowance, and I'm going to be gluing it down to the rest of the leather piece. Okay, zippers are done. Now it's time to attach the pocket to the front panel. This is going to be going around the outside of the pocket and attaching to the front panel. It's basically a long piece of leather that I'm going to sew on the perimeter of the pocket. I'm making sure to keep the center where I attach the loops together in the center of the pocket and to also attach it precisely, since any mistake would cause the backpack to look asymmetrical, and that is definitely not what I want. Okay, I made it through all the way around the front pocket. Now it's time to attach it to the front panel. And this is one of the most critical steps, since this is the characteristic defining signature of the backpack, how this pocket fits, how this pocket looks, and I need to get this as precise as I can, and that's why I'm gluing it in place first and making sure that my placement is as correct as can be. I'm using the original sewing pattern of the pocket piece to make a guideline for where to attach it, and this will make sure that I get my placement correct and that I don't distort anything. Since leather stretches a bit, this would mean that if I just placed it on a whim, it would move and stretch out of the way, which is not what I want. I move around the perimeter with extreme caution and place pressure on only the points that are already set in place and that are within my guidelines. This will make sure that everything looks neat, looks tidy, and looks correct. It's hard to do leatherworking without the practice of perfectionism, and since I don't really practice that in my day-to-day life, and I like to think that I'm a quick-thinking and fast-acting person, I enjoy these challenges of trying to sit down in one place and being as precise and as careful as I can be. I've allowed some time for the glue to dry, and now I'm going to sew it in place. I'm sorry that the visibility of the needle is not so great in this shot, but most of the times I can't even see the needle myself, so I'm going off by feel alone and looking only at the fabric. There are a couple of reference points that I keep in mind when I'm sewing something. So the edge of the fabric, the edge of the foot of the sewing machine, and the base of the sewing machine. Oh, finally, hard part's done. Now let's move on to something a bit more easy, the rest of the backpack. Now that that's finished, all that's left for me to do with these two panels is to sew them together. For this, I need to find the center of both of these. So you can see me marking out with a pen the center lines and then fitting them together to form a perfect fit around the edge. This means that the zipper will be centered and it will all look symmetrical and good. I'm not going to use glue to fix them together because I think the friction will be just enough to not let them slide apart. And you can see this is a perfect fit, and I'm trying to place it under the sewing machine foot as precisely as I can. As I'm sewing around the corners, I'm doing it in pulses, so not all at once, but doing some sewing, then stopping for a while, then doing some sewing, then readjusting, and so on. From my past experiences, I can tell you this is the best method I have found for sewing around thick material and around corners like these. One more precaution that I take is that I sew it in two parts. So I start from the middle and then sew it on one side and then check my seams, and if it's good, then I flip it around and sew on the other side. You can see that one side is complete in this picture. And thankfully I managed to nail it on the first go, so it's on to the next side. But I'm not going to show you that because it's exactly the same. And here you go, that's the top part finished. Now I'm pretty happy with my result. I think it turned out great. I think I've managed to nail a consistent look, and I hope it looks symmetrical to you, but it looks symmetrical to me, so I think it's gonna do just fine. Now for the bottom, which is just one piece of leather that needs to go around the edge, and I just need to sew it together with the other pieces that I've already placed on the front panel. As I've previously shown you, I've left a huge piece of seam allowance to leave enough room to sew it together, and this will allow me to glue down the sides and make it look neat and tidy. You can see these two bunny ears need to be glued down to the side and then sewn over, which will make it look flat. As I was twisting the backpack under the sewing machine, I managed to break a needle, so I need to be way more careful because you can't overload the sewing machine with some sideways pressure, even though you are trying to sew a corner and you need to twist it to the side. To be more precise, I took my foot off the sewing pedal and twisted the hand crank all the way through this corner, and this gives me way more control, but it also makes it a lot more tedious and a lot more time consuming. So I'm going to do both corners like this just to not break another needle. And these are some of the pieces that I didn't make a sewing pattern for because I think I can manage it just from experience. And I basically cut two strips of leather, and these are going to be the holders for the backpack. I'm just gluing the edges onto themselves and then placing a piece of string inside and then gluing that on as well. This piece of white rope doesn't really serve any other purpose than to make the holders a bit thicker and to give them a bit more appeal. I think that it looks way better than if I had just left it unfilled. By the way, I ended up sewing them together later and I didn't show it because it took a long time and I was doing it by hand. So here you can see the final result. I think it looks great. I could have paid a bit more attention on the hand sewing part, but you know, that's life. And I think that I've already spent like 1.5 hours on just these two pieces, so I need to get a move on. I've gotten these hollow rivets as a Christmas present from my girlfriend's father last year, and I never actually used them, so now I think is a great opportunity to use them for this backpack. I think that this bronze shine will look great with this off-white string and matte black leather. So I'm just marking where I want the rivets to go and then punching some holes through them with a Phillips head screwdriver. I know it's not the best tool, but I lost my hole cutter, so this is gonna have to do. Oh wait, I found my hole cutter. It's just basically a piece of cylinder like steel, and you need to punch it through to the other side on the leather, and then you can push the rivets through. And I don't have a rivet gun, but these rivet pliers are going to do just fine for this project. So I punched some holes through the backpack too, and then with this hand riveting tool I rivet them together. 6 rivets on each of the handles, and they are fixed in place. Wow, check those out. They look absolutely great. And here you go, all 12 of them are done. Wow, amazing. I'm really excited about how these turned out, and I think it adds a bit more feminine touch to the whole look of the backpack, and thankfully that's what I wanted to achieve. So let's move on. Only a couple more steps left. You know, these projects take a long time and are pretty stressful when you're working on such a tight deadline for Christmas. So it's important to take a break every now and then. And here you can see me playing chess. This is my way of preparation for the next phase, which is going to be the lining made out of the red fabric that I've already shown you. And I hate doing this. The lining has always been the most difficult to understand and to sew in place. Since you're already working with an almost finished product, you don't really feel the necessity for it, and it really elevates a project from beginner to expert level, I think. So I'm gritting my teeth and trying to get through it as fast as I can. Basically, I just want to have a couple of pockets on the inside to make the backpack a bit more functional. So one pocket with a long zipper, and also a couple of pockets for some pens, and one more non-zipper pocket for anything else that you might have laying around in your backpack. I've always felt sorry for women searching in their backpacks for hours on end, trying to find something that is on the bottom of the backpack and not having a designated pocket for it. And these are the two panels. This is the zipper one, which is kind of a bigger pocket, which is going to be located on the back side of the backpack. And these are the ones for the pens and anything else that might be laying around in your backpack. And now all that's left to do is to sew it on to the finished front panel. And this again is one of those moments where you can't see that much, and I can't see anything when I'm sewing it. So I'm going off basically by feel alone. Even though I want to finish this project and I'm already a bit tired, this is the 4th day of working on just this backpack, I actually have to pay a bit more attention because there are some details that can't be missed. For example, like this. Through the rivets, the lining doesn't really cover everything and the raw leather can be seen through. So I glued these red pieces of fabric onto the back side of the rivets to hide the contents of the inside. I think this and every other little detail elevates the backpack from just a beginner project to something a bit more advanced. Before I can finish the lining, I need to add the back panel, and I've already sewn the straps for the backpack onto the back panel, which is just basically 2 little pieces of nylon straps, and I didn't show you this because I think it would be pretty boring, but here you can see me sewing on the final piece of the lining, and then all that's left to do is to turn it inside out and check out the backpack if it's done. This is always the best part, because you're finishing a project that lasted a long time and you get to unwrap your Christmas present from the inside out. Oh man, I can't wait to show you this. Thank you so much for watching this video. This took a long time to create and I'm really happy with my result. My girlfriend was happy too. Now, I would like to ask you to subscribe to my channel, comment and like if you enjoyed the video. I would be honored if you'd help me reach 100 subscribers. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.